Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton Agenda Awani dan malam ini saya berpeluang untuk melihat aspek yang sedang berlaku di Asia Barat maupun Timur Tengah dalam pandangan Barat itu dalam konteks yang mungkin agak alternatif berbanding yang lain. Ya, kita melihat pada kekejaman yang berlaku, ya, kita ingin menghentikan pertumpahan darah, tetapi strategi dan pemikirannya mungkin perlu mencapai gapaian ataupun capaian yang lebih besar. Dalam konteks itu, saya ingin minta izin untuk berbicara dalam bahasa Inggeris. I would like to welcome Hin Kuri. Thank you so much for making time. You are an expert in economy. You've been there to represent the Palestinians in France as an ambassador, and I'm sure you are one of the right authorities for me to refer to regarding what's happening right now in West Asia, or Middle East as the West like to call it. A lot of focus now is on Egypt, the bloodshed, the fatalities and the numbers growing. But we do know that this is a very important region. From the issues of the Palestinians, which we've been discussing maybe for 6 over decades, ever since the creation of the Israeli state, right up until what's happening in Egypt right now. How do you propose that the world must consider and must look at all these issues? Because even in Kuala Lumpur, we're not just going to sit around and go there in front of the US Embassy every Friday just to shout abuse and protest. We must have a more strategic thinking. And organizations like the Perdana Leadership and Perdana Global Peace Foundation, for example, have looked at, initiating things from the legal aspect, looking at the atrocities of war, finding a legal recourse, having a tribunal in absentia, for example. And tomorrow this is going to happen and begin to happen where we will see the trial in absentia. But before all that, I want to reset maybe to an extent the thinking of people outside these conflict areas, and maybe you can give your views on that.
First, I'm glad you... First, I would like to thank you for your invitation. Second, I'm glad you referred to the region, because I think we can't really understand what is happening in Palestine, in Jerusalem, in the Palestinian territories, and the review of the conflict without looking at the region. And it is time to take a step back, actually, and look at it from historically. What were the trends for now a few decades? Yeah. The issue is not about the occupation of Palestine, the establishment of Israel, and then the further occupation after 1967 of the rest of Palestine. What we see happening in the region, and maybe almost throughout my life, the last at least 20 or 25 years, I remember the Algerian conflict, the Lebanese war, what is happening in Iraq, now not a long time ago in Syria, and now in Egypt. We have our fingers burnt in all the region. Now, how come all these countries are developing internal conflicts? How come this war on terror has become a bit known as a war in Islam? Because people don't want to go into details. We need to review these issues. And I think, in my view, especially the Middle East, and maybe the greater Middle East, the world is becoming a global village, actually. So, but there are interests, of course, and the region is extremely strategic. This is the oil resources and the gas are very important. These are historically very important trade routes between the West and the East. And this is also the cradle of our Abrahamic religions. It's the cradle of civilization. It has its influence on the world, and many powers would want to control it. Now, I think that the way we need to think about it is what we can do about it. Of course, there are external interests. Now, what do we do to protect our own interests, to protect our social cohesion, to protect our economic achievements, at least for those who have achievements, but I can't say the same about Palestinians because of the occupation. Every time we move forward on the economy, we only found ourselves going backwards. So I think, I would want to emphasize is, first, do the homework well. Don't fall, for all of us, in the world, all countries, but especially in maybe the Arab and the Muslim world, we are falling into emotive reactions. This will only make other powers make their interests or game of interests easier. We fall into traps that are made for us, and so we need to think, analyze geopolitically what is happening around us in our countries, and then define actions. What do we do about it? And the first thing now, clearly, what we need to do is avoid internal polarizations, internal conflicts, certainly. Because even, I mean, for years we spoke of political Islam. What's political Islam today? Is it the Shiite Islam? Is it the Muslim Brotherhood? Is it the Sunni? Is it the Nusra groups and militias in Syria? You know, what is it? It's all so confused. So again, I think really we have reached at the climax of the crisis. We need to think all collectively as people, as political parties, as governments. And I would like to point out that we live in this global village. Human beings, normal citizens, cannot afford not to be politically conscious and politically active in a very wise way. Not politically active, but just by raising flags and raising our voices and expressing our grievances, which do exist. We have grievances. But I think we need to be smarter than that, really. Do the analysis, do the homework, and that's, I think, where the Perdana Global Peace Foundation, for example, and such think tanks are extremely important because they will guide public opinion. Of course, media is also a very important role.
So it's the intellectual approach to look at this particular issue in the region that we have mentioned. But discourse is also a lot controlled by strategies which have been made by certain parties. And now, maybe like you said, some of us are reacting more than responding in a critical manner. So how do you wish for the discourse on the Middle East or West Asia to change? Because now if we talk about the Palestine issue, rather than focus very much on Israel in specific terms, we tend to look at whether it's Hamas or Fatah first, and then we talk about the overall. And we've looked at Iraq before, and now we don't know which side to look upon because there's so many factions in Iraq right now. And if democracy is supposed to be good, why is the situation not improving, for example? And you look at Libya now, you look at Egypt now. Can I encapsulate all that? And what's the hope for the region post the so-called Arab Spring? Because Arab Spring is supposed to be about the civil society rising to ask for empowerment of themselves. No longer shall or must we tolerate all these abuses, and we want the rights for everyone. But as we all know, looking at the case of Egypt, the forces that topple all the powers of before are not the same forces that could go up and govern. And hence, like you said, the critical analysis of the political side must be there. And how would you like that to happen? That we'll discuss after the short break. And we're talking about the political consciousness regarding issues in the region as a whole. But there's a lot of perceptions and already preset understanding of this region, of West Asia and Middle East. How would you like to see this being moved forward in terms of thinking? Because it's very polarized right now. Even now in Malaysia, we're talking about the Sunni and the Shiite and others. And how do you propose for this discourse to happen? Because the moment you mention the word Israel in the Muslim world, it takes a different inertia. But if you mention the same word in America, for example, and you're speaking as a minority trying to win over thinkers, intellectuals, it will have to have a different gravitas.
Yes.
So how do you propose for this discourse to happen in this global village that we have?
You know, not only because I'm a Palestinian, but I would like to emphasize the centrality of the Palestinian cause or the Palestinian question. I think the issue that concerns most people, you and I, our families, Malaysians, Palestinians, is the issue of justice, especially now with the internal upheaval in the Arab world and what the Arab Spring is about, as you rightly said. It's about people wanting social justice. justice. In a global village, internal justice is not enough. We need, of course, the rule of law in every country, but we need the international rule of law. We need an international governance system that works, and it hasn't been working because we see double standards in implementing international law. Justice is made for some and it's not for others. So the Palestinian cause is central in many ways. First, on the issues of justice and international law. You know, it's the international governance system, the UN have decided to partition Palestine into a Jewish state and a Palestinian state.
Yes.
How come the Palestinian state is not in place? You know, and it's now over 65 years. You know, so now after 65 years and after 45 years of Israeli occupation in 67, where Palestinians have compromised so much, you know, we want only a state on 22% of what is our homeland, you know, in historical Palestine. Yes. How come we're not getting it? Because Israel is being treated as an exclusive state that doesn't have to apply international law. Yeah. This doesn't work in our world. So I think the issue of Palestine will be very representative of the importance of international law. Most of our problems, and even I think the region, will be solved if justice is upheld, if international law is applied, if no violations, these horrible violations, that's why there are tribunal hearings, because I mean, the war against Gaza in 2009, the ongoing settlement in the West Bank, the Judaization of Jerusalem, which is by definition a universal city, a pluralistic and inclusive city. They're making it into exclusive for them. Israeli settlements that's taking away, choking us from our resources, from land and ability to move. Anyhow, but so what I'm going to saying, really emphasizing, is the issue of justice and international law. Solve the Palestinian question. That will mean our international governance system has found its health again, and that's why we need to find the peace of the world. Now, if we look at the region, again, I think the discourse has to emphasize, of course, social justice. Social justice will require social cohesion, will require that all powers, parties are working for the welfare of the people. It's not easy. Everybody knows what the national interest is. Now, put down this emotive, reactive mode of acting and thinking. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. You know, the issue in Egypt is not about protecting the Muslim brothers because they won the elections. And no, there are more important national objectives. And everybody has done mistakes. You know, let's put the mistakes aside and see what are our objectives and work towards that. And I think this is going to happen at the end of the day, whether in a year or 10 or 100 years. So why not do it now? Yes. So we need also internally to act. And I will emphasize the word act, because what will make a difference in our all Muslim and Arab world, which is now in a sense being targeted, you know, for control and interests, it will depend on how we make history. It's men and women who make history. So let's work on closing the cleavage between all warring parties. Put religion aside. Religion, I mean, I come from Jerusalem, and I think faith is a most wonderful thing. Yeah. And I see Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, you know, it's almost the same faith. You know, there's so much in common. Certainly the spirituality is the same. So, I mean, let's put that down, all this religious conflict. Let religion enforce us to become better human beings, you know, sustain our value system, be productive, be selfless, maybe work for the welfare of the community. And then politically, let's work on building democratic systems that will help us, you know, go through the ordeals of managing a country, which is never easy. And in your case, because it's not what's happening in the Middle East. We are all threatened, I think. Polarization will be imported into Malaysia and in other countries. You need to protect your achievements and your social cohesion. So again, it's very it sounds simple, very difficult to implement perhaps, but we need to act on it. International law, democratic systems, I think. I think these would be key.
I have to go for the last break, but once we are back, I would like to take that wisdom of Jerusalem, and we've read about it, we've seen it in movies, but you have lived it, and I'm very envious of that, because I've never been able to have the luxury of setting foot in Jerusalem itself. But what can we share from there? Because a few weeks or a few months ago, when I was in America, right in the heart of Washington with the U.S. State Department, they were telling me, or the whole group of editors from around the world, that the ones that never rest, this group, because we're asking them about justice, just exactly the same thing that you were saying. Why is it that it seems to work for everyone else, but not for this one particular issue called Palestine or Palestine? So they say that the hardest working non-stop, 24 hours, every second of the day, every single day of the week, they are the Jewish lobby. So how do we up the game, so-called, at this level, from what we have said, trying to fight for justice, social cohesion on that platform? Because just demonstrating alone might not work. And we've seen that with the Arab Spring. Instead of going towards the Palestinian, it's moving outwards and even disturbing countries who have already preset borders like Egypt and Libya, for example. So how do we work that? Would civil society be the ones that having to take this leadership, move forward? Because we cannot hope for small group interested political parties. And how do we do that? That we'll discuss after this short break. I'm going to ask now for you to give us a very difficult look into the future. Sometimes if we only take the pessimistic view, it seems that the future will be very, very bleak for Palestinians, for the whole of Middle East, for example. But I'm sure there are green shoots of hope for justice there. You know, with everything that's been moved to the precipice, there's always the greatest inertia and energy to pull back. History has proven that, even in the most difficult of times. But what hope do we have? Because there's more gloom and doom to look at rather than hope of peace and justice. Because when there was the Arab Spring before, some people on this side of the world think, good, this Arab Spring, millions of people coming together on social media, coming out on the street. If they only move toward West Bank and Gaza, then we can force the same thing to be settled there. But it's not as
People's
simple.
power.
It's
No.
not as easy. So your
No,
point
it
of
takes
view.
some intelligence, I
Yes.
think. Well, now you really push me to talk about people power,
Yes.
and the hope that people will really make a difference by really moving. And the idea is just moving towards Israel and forcing it to apply international law and give Palestinians their right and their freedom. But let me tell you, it takes more than that, because the other party is very intelligent and they've already done their calculation. They know what's coming. They prevent it before it comes. So they will weaken people's power if this is going to mean that their political agenda will be weakened. And this is what's happening in the region. I don't think it's by coincidence. It's only by internal weakness that we see internal strife. Internal strife will protect Israel in a sense. They can sustain a status quo, whereby the region is a mess. So they can there continue their program of expanding settlements, taking away Palestinian
You're very
land.
convinced that the internal strife now has been exploited to be
Of
so.
course. I mean, if you have interest, they're going to exploit every weakness you have. So again, that's why I say we need to plan. It's our approach. It's what we do about it that is important, because we can't have control on the other party, but we can have control on what we do and what policies we pursue. Now, I would like to go back to what we can do, because the instruments are very important. And I spoke about international law. We need to uphold justice, and we need to build democratic systems and institutions. But there's a lot also more we can do. And let me, since you mentioned Jerusalem, I would like to say that what we need to do is seek the peace of Jerusalem. Because Jerusalem, which is now, unfortunately, this city 3 times holy, is a city of a lot of tension, strife, and confrontation and conflict. The peace of Jerusalem means now, certainly, internal Muslim-Muslim reconciliation, harmony, and to live up the real religion. It is also about interfaith dialogue with other religions, because Jerusalem is also the reconciliation between the faiths, Abrahamic faiths, and an agenda of living together. We all have to follow, you are very good in the language of business, a win-win kind of approach. That's the only thing that's going to work. We want let everybody live. That's actually at the core of the Palestinian Peace Initiative in 1988, when we have accepted a very small state, and in 2002, reconfirmed in 2007, is the Arab and Muslim Peace Initiative, where they have offered Israel total peace and normalization, against its withdrawal from all the occupied territories in 1967. So we have the elements now. Israel clearly, since there is no action on the Muslim and Arab side, not enough, unfortunately, they're getting away with what they do. There's no pressure that they change policy. So this formula has got to change. But there's also more we can do. I think if we're not doing war, we need to do diplomacy. Diplomacy is extremely important, and you rightly spoke about the pro-Israel lobby in the US, which is making a lot of dent on the American policy. Why? I mean, there are Muslim communities in the US. There are Asian communities in the US, Western and Eastern Asian communities. What are they doing about all these grievances? How come they're not pushing for this or that policy? So we need public policy, whereby the public is also involved, in addition to governments. I think also governments in the Arab and Muslim worlds, they have, I'm sure, good intentions. They will vote the right way at the UN, but then they don't do anything about it. Diplomacy is hard work. It's every day follow up on every detail.
Would you need one Muslim country to take the lead? Turkey, for example.
I don't believe in that, but I believe in block of countries to take the lead. You know, I think we need to everybody to be active. You can't. I think this old-fashioned kind of leadership where somebody leads and the others can rest, you know. It doesn't work anymore in our global village, this world.
But the younger generation look at OIC. And here in Malaysia, we have this colloquial saying, OIC, as in I-S-E-E.
It doesn't do enough, you know, it doesn't do enough. But people also have to be active. What I'm saying is government, institutions, civil society, the ordinary citizen in our modern 21st century world, this global village requires responsible citizens. If citizens want to protect their interests and protect their future and protect their achievements, they need to know what is happening around them. They need to have an opinion. And I have to admit that's what Israelis are very good for. Every Israeli in some small village anywhere would be aware and would have a position and stand and speak up on political issues. So we need more of this public diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, not only by governments but by civil society and peoples.
I totally agree with you on that, and I hope the rest of the audience can pitch in by sending in their views. Thank you so much, Inkuri, for making time to be on this show. And I have a lot of things to say, but I want to end by the memory of Rachel Corrie, and I know PGPF has very strong memories and initiative on this. So if a young girl from America who's not even Muslim can come to defend the right of the Palestinians who are trampled upon by a very, very unjust administration of the Zionist regime, why can't we move in a more strategic manner and a very critical and analytical manner, at least from the lobby side, and match the lobby that supports the Zionist regime step for step, if not more. So that's something to ponder. Hantarkan pandangan anda sendiri. Kita ada Facebook, Instagram dan Twitter Awani, atau terus saja ke astroawani.com. Di sana anda juga boleh meletakkan pandangan anda, dan jangan lupa besok sampai ke hujung minggu dan nanti ada persidangan antarabangsa yang akan memikirkan apa yang harus dilakukan untuk masa depan. Sekian, selamat malam dan terima kasih. Thank you so much.